Hi friends, and welcome back to the channel. I first want to apologize for the non-upload of last week as I was out of town on a conference and was unable to finish editing in time, and I figured I'd just make up for it this week. So I hope that's not too bad, but today's video is very important, so if you can, stick till the end. So today we are diving into a fairy tale we all grew up hearing, which is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That is the drawing that I am making, and you'll see like the process of throughout the whole video. So I'm doing something different with how I'm filming in this particular video. Let me know if you like it. I'm just gonna do close-ups and then I guess I'll reveal it in the end. So you're not going to see like the whole artwork throughout the video, just kind of like snippets of me working on it. So let me know how you feel about it. But I am reinterpreting the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears to explore something bigger, something that's happening in the world around us today. So we've often seen this story as a harmless tale about boundaries, choices, and consequences. But what if there's more to it than that? What if Goldilocks isn't just a curious girl wandering into a stranger's home? What if she represents individuality and agency, and the bears symbolize power, privilege, and societal systems that try to control us? I know this is different than what this story is originally meant for, but I figured with today's political climate, I wanted to explore opposite themes and themes that still relate to the original source, but how we can interpret it differently, especially how we can relate it to us. Especially with how I, in myself, experience, make art to escape, but also face reality, and face the world around me. So I figured I'd do the same with this tale. This video is about art, storytelling, and how fairy tales can be used to reflect modern struggles. Stick around as I create a painting that reimagines Goldilocks and the Three Bears for our specific time and what we're going through right now. In this reinterpretation, Goldilocks isn't the intruder. In fact, she is the one being intruded upon. The bears are no longer innocent animals with their porridge and cozy chairs. Instead, they're dressed in the trappings of wealth and power, symbols of aristocracy making a comeback in modern society. The garments are adorned with gold embroidery, heavy silks, and jewels, all of which represent their self-imposed superiority. They're not just bears anymore. They're figures of privilege using their influence to decide who belongs and who doesn't, who has worth and who doesn't measure up. My Goldilocks, by contrast, represents the everyday individual, the creative spirit that dares to exist outside the rigid expectations set by the powerful. In my story, she's a wanderer, an explorer, but here she's subdued, her agency diminished by the weight of judgment. It's a dynamic I see playing out in the world around us today. Think about how systems of privilege, rooted in race, gender, sexuality, and wealth, work to silence individuality. Whether it's through laws, social biases, or economic control, those at top are still dictating what's just right for everyone else. They claim to know better, to decide our worth, our boundaries, and even our dreams. Fairy tales are often seen as stories for children, simple and innocent. But when you peel back the layers, they reveal truths about societies that created them. I reimagined Goldilocks not as an intruder, but as a symbol, a young girl who represents those who dare to exist outside the expectations of a world built against them. She is marginalized, a minority in this story, and the bears, well, they represent authority, wealth, and the desire to dominate spaces they believe belong only to them. In this reinterpretation, the bears are no longer just creatures protecting their porridge and furniture. Instead, they're figures of privilege. Wealthy, powerful, and entitled, their world is luxurious and rigid, designed to keep out anyone who doesn't fit their mold. Kinda sounds like some political figures, if you ask me. Goldilocks, on the other hand, is an outsider. She's wandering, searching for a place where she belongs, but instead of being welcomed, she's met with judgment. Her presence is seen as a threat, a disruption to the order the bears have carefully curated for themselves. She is a stand-in for the voices and lives that systems of power try to suppress, the minorities they often try to oppress. Goldilocks is important because she challenges the idea that power belongs only to the privileged. Her very existence defies their rules. There's a growing trend today, a shift towards control. We see leaders, policies, and systems that seek to silence dissent and erase diversity. They disguise this as protection, order, or tradition, but it's really about fear. Fear of those who think differently, fear of those who look different, and fear of those who dream beyond the limits imposed on them. The bears in my painting embody this mindset. Their wealth, their clothing, and their posture all scream one thing, and that is superiority. They see themselves as arbiters of who gets a seat at the table, and for them, Goldilocks does not belong. The table itself is a metaphor, a place where decisions are made, power is held, and influence is wielded. Goldilocks sits there, but not as an equal. Her presence is tolerated, scrutinized, and questioned. She is told she doesn't fit, that her voice doesn't matter, and that her dreams are too disruptive for their perfect world. But that's the thing about those who are underestimated. They have a resilience that power cannot replicate. Goldilocks doesn't leave this table, she stays, not because she's welcome, but because she deserves to be there. Every voice deserves to be heard equally. There is no one person who is greater than the other, and that's what the whole world is meant to be. Voices coming together in harmony to create a perfect and harmonious place for everyone to give opinions and thoughts to grow and share in a world that is ideal for future generations to come. This painting isn't just about a fairy tale. It's about the stories we see unfolding around us every day. It's about the ways those in power create systems that feel unwelcoming, hostile, and impossible to navigate for anyone who doesn't fit their ideal narrative. Goldilocks may be a girl in this story, but she's also a symbol of every person who has been told they don't belong because of their background, their identity, or their circumstances. And art? Well, art gives us the power to tell these stories, to amplify these voices, and to imagine a world where the table is for everyone, not just the privileged few. That's why I love it so much. It gives me a voice and a platform to share my thoughts, opinions, and be able to be myself and express myself equally among those around me, where in a real circumstance, I wouldn't be given that opportunity. That's why I'm so thankful for art and the relief it gives me, as well as the voice it gives me. Personally, I'm a soft-spoken person in my everyday life, and sometimes I don't have the courage to say what I want to say in the moment that I think is appropriate because I'm so shy and I have so much anxiety. And I feel like that's why I'm so thankful to harnessing my skills in art to be able to say what I can't. It's a medium that speaks for me, and it's definitely a privilege I'm definitely afforded and I'm so thankful for. In this piece, I wanted Goldilocks to have a quiet strength. She's outnumbered, overshadowed, and out of place, but she's not defeated. She's holding her ground, even as the bears loom over her with their wealth and their judgment. It's a reminder that resilience doesn't always look loud or bold. Sometimes it's just about staying true to who you are, even when the world around you tells you otherwise. When designing the bears, I wanted them to feel larger than life, almost overwhelming. Their opulent clothing, their postures, their disdainful gazes, they're meant to dominate the space and make Goldilocks feel small. It mirrors the way privilege can overshadow individuality, making people feel like they don't belong in spaces of power or influence. And at the same time, I wanted Goldilocks to have a quiet strength. She's sitting at a table, surrounded by this display of wealth, where there's resilience in her posture, a subtle reminder that no matter how much power others wield, they can never fully control your creative spirit. This idea of aristocracy making a comeback isn't just metaphorical. We're seeing wealth and privilege concentrate more and more in the hands of a few, while the rest of us are left navigating systems that feel increasingly unfair. Whether it's corporations controlling creative industries or policies that disproportionately impact marginalized groups, it can feel like the modern bears are everywhere. But here's the thing. Art has always been a form of resistance. Take Norman Rockwell's piece, The Jury Room, for example. This piece was a social commentary made in 1959 about women being jurors in a court of law. This was definitely a social commentary that led to equal opportunity for women to become jurors later on. And it was such an impactful piece that it started the conversation. And that's all we need to do with our art as artists. Throughout history, artists have used their work to challenge power, to reflect truths that people in charge would rather ignore. And that's what this piece is about, reclaiming the narrative just like Goldilocks does when she walks into that house and makes her own choices. The setting in this painting is just as important as the characters. The beautiful decadent dining room-like area just outside of the archway, or inside of the archway, is meant to represent a world built to exclude. Everything is polished, cold, and untouchable, designed to remind Goldilocks, and by extension all of us, that we don't belong. But despite this, Goldilocks sits at the table. She's there and she's not giving up her seat. It's a metaphor for resistance, staying true to yourself in spaces that try to push us out. In the original story, Goldilocks runs away, but in this piece she stays. She's not defeated. That's a message I want to leave you with today. No matter how overwhelming the world feels, your voice, your creativity, and your identity matter. Fairy tales might seem like simple stories, but they've always been about deeper truths. They're reflections of our fears, our struggles, and our hopes. By reimagining them, we can use them to start conversations about the things that matter most, just like Norman Rockwell. And that's what I hope to do with my art. While this story is centuries old, its themes are eerily relevant to the world we find ourselves living in today. In many ways, it mirrors the challenges we face in the United States, a nation at a crossroads where values of equality, opportunity, and justice feel increasingly under siege. We are witnessing a growing consolidation of power, one that seeks to elevate the privileged while silencing the voices of those who have fought hardest for a seat at the table. Policies and rhetoric are emerging that seem designed to stifle those who dare to speak out, especially those who are immigrants, people of color, women, and members of the LGBTQ+ community. A quick side note, I know I'm not usually political on this channel, and I don't plan to be in the future. I just thought it would be necessary commentary at this time, especially with a lot of people fearing for their livelihood and their safety in the country that we are supposed to feel safe and equal and love each other. So I thought maybe I could use my platform to raise awareness to these concerns and be a safe haven for those who feel misrepresented or not safe in their own homes. And I thought it would be necessary, especially myself, and wanting to put myself out there as a safe place and a place where you can feel supported. And I love all the communities, and I definitely treasure your input and your thoughts, especially if this is too much and I should probably stay away from politics on the channel. But just let me know. I don't know. I just thought putting my thoughts out there would be necessary, especially in a time like this. Around the country, there's been a sense of returning to an old and dangerous idea that power and influence should belong only to a select few. Call it aristocracy, elitism, or something else entirely. It's a worldview that prioritizes wealth, status, and control over diversity, creativity, and freedom. And like the bears in this painting, those in power often hide behind the guise of tradition in order to maintain their dominance. But that's the thing. Goldilocks doesn't leave. She doesn't cower or run, even though she's outnumbered and outmatched. She stays. She asserts her right to be there, to exist, to take up space in a world that tries to shut her out. And that's what we must do today. We are all Goldilocks in some way, navigating spaces that weren't designed for us, facing forces that would rather see us silent or gone. But our creativity, our resilience, and our determination are more powerful than any system of oppression. Art in particular has often always been a tool of defiance, a way to challenge the status quo, to amplify unheard voices, and to imagine new possibilities for the future. This piece isn't just about a fairy tale or isn't just a painting. It's about the world we live in and the world we want to create. The rise of aristocratic ideals and exclusionary policies may feel overwhelming, but history has shown us time again that change starts with those who refuse to give up. Art has always been a weapon of hope, a way to spark conversations and inspire movements. Every brushstroke, every word, every act of creativity is a statement that we will not be silenced, that we will not be erased, and that we will continue to fight for a world where everyone has a place at the table. In the end, this story, like the painting, is about so much more than Goldilocks and the bears. It's about the systems that have long defined who belongs, who is valued, and who gets to have a voice at the table. It's about the barriers faced by those who challenge these systems, those who dare to speak up, create, and exist in spaces that were designed to exclude them. Goldilocks may seem out of place in the bear's house, but isn't that the point? Her presence challenges the unspoken rules of that space, confronting the idea that only the powerful are entitled to comfort, safety, and the right to take up space. She represents all of us who have felt unwelcome in a world that judges us by the color of our skin, our gender, our identity, or the circumstances of our birth. Her story is a metaphor for resilience required to navigate a society that often sees different as a threat rather than a strength. And then there are the bears, cloaked in their expensive garments, embodying the very idea of privilege and power. They aren't just characters in a fairy tale, they're symbols of the systems we see today. Systems that consolidate power in the hands of a few while keeping others out. These bears remind us of the growing trend toward elitism and the resurgence of ideologies that suggest that wealth and status equate to worth. They represent the forces that aim to silence those who challenge the status quo, whether through art, activism, or simply by existing authentically. But here's what matters. Goldilocks doesn't leave. She doesn't let their dominance define her. Her story may start with her feeling out of place, but it doesn't end there. She dares to question, to try, and to push boundaries, and in doing so, she asserts her right to be there. So as I leave you with this painting, I want you to think about your own table, your own spaces where power and privilege clash with justice and equality, and how will your voice, your art, and your actions make those spaces more inclusive, more equitable, and more hopeful. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to check out my Instagram and my TikTok, both as Ash Artisan. I'm always sharing behind the scenes, sneak peeks, updates on my art projects, and more stuff, so come drop by. And as always, thank you so much for watching.